Steven Seagal has been a household name for decades, but not always in a good way. From shaking hands with Vladimir Putin to repeated infidelity, there's plenty to question about this action star's personal and professional decisions. Any exploration of Steven Seagal's life would be incomplete without acknowledging the numerous accusations of dishonesty that follow him everywhere. They've even come up under oath. In 2003, a Brooklyn court heard from defense attorney George Santangelo, who was defending Anthony Ciccone and Primo Casarino from accusations of extorting Seagal for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Seagal's case had attracted FBI attention, and elements of the defense hinged on Seagal's widely supported reputation as a notorious liar. Though Ciccone and Casarino were convicted, Canadian filmmaker and witness Damian Lee told the New York Post that Seagal is generally delusional and that, quote, can't tell what is fact or fiction. Accusations of Seagal flipping the truth like his Aikido partner even extend to his family. According to People, Seagal's mom, Pat, stated that most of the actor's stories about his youth are exaggerated at best. He claimed to have spent most of his youth as a street tough in Brooklyn, but she seems to remember a frail asthmatic kid who moved from Michigan to California when he was 5. Seagal also claimed to study under Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido. However, People reports that he didn't get to Japan until after Ueshiba had died. This prompted black belt Terry Dobson to claim that particular narrative is false, and that he'd never heard of Seagal while he was studying under Ueshiba himself. As long as he's been famous, Steven's pronounced his last name like this.
My name is Steven Seagal.
However, it turns out that he and everyone else have been wrong to say it this way. The name, like Seagal's paternal lineage, is Jewish, and usually pronounced similarly to Seagull. Reportedly, there are a couple of reasons why Seagal changed the pronunciation of his name. According to Spy magazine, Seagal entered into business with his longtime friend Hollywood producer Gary Goldman. While planning a potential production company, Seagal allegedly objected to the idea of using their names as a business title, stating that Seagull Goldman Productions would, quote, sound too much like two Jews from the garment business. He then supposedly changed the pronunciation of his surname to avoid sounding too Jewish. Instead, he went with the pronunciation we all know to honor Russian-French modernist artist Marc Chagall, whose work had recently moved him. To hear others tell it, Seagal does not take criticism well. In 1991, GQ magazine ran a less than flattering profile on Seagal, written by Alan Richman. Seagal publicly struck back at the writer, issuing personal insults on Arsenio Hall's iconic talk show.
This guy is like a 5'2" fat little, male.
To the Orlando Sentinel, Richman, a 5'9" Army captain, responded with more than a touch of sarcasm. He stated that he didn't mean to offend, but that he could have been far more cruel. As an unnamed security consultant told Spy magazine, Seagal may have tried to take the feud further by allegedly trying to have Richman blackmailed in revenge. Seagal reportedly asked the consultant to set Richman up with a male lover, photograph the results, and use evidence of Richman's supposed homosexuality to ruin his career. The consultant balked at the request and refused, but worse was to follow. During the same meeting, Seagal allegedly asked whether he could arrange a hit on a man from Chicago. The consultant told the outlet that he was unsure how Seagal imagined the arrangement going down, and suggested to the magazine that the action star may have been issuing a broad threat against anyone who would cross him. Once again, Seagal's guest refused his request. While he's largely known for a selection of exceptionally violent action movies, Seagal has also been a Buddhist for many years. In 1997, Pinor Rinpoche, the supreme head of the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism, announced that Seagal was a reincarnation of the 17th century Buddhist master Zhongdrog Dorje. Rinpoche dubbed him a Tolku, a soul reborn to help others seek enlightenment. Seagal was one of only around 30 under Rinpoche's tutelage, and before being bestowed his new position had donated a considerable sum to Rinpoche's monastery. This led to speculation of a pay-for-prey arrangement, in which Seagal had bought Rinpoche's approval. Addressing the strange dichotomy of an action star receiving such an honor, Rinpoche stated, "Such movies are for temporary entertainment and do not relate to what is real and important." Seagal's publicist argued that his donations had nothing to do with Rinpoche's recognition. At the time, according to The Guardian, Seagal stated, "I don't believe it is very important who I was in my last lives. I think it is important what I do in this life." Like many Hollywood stars, Steven Seagal has several marriages under his belt, 4 to be exact. Seagal married his first wife, Miyako Fujitani, in 1975. According to Spy magazine, some claim that Seagal deliberately married a Japanese national to avoid the draft. Seagal left Japan in 1980 with a promise never to portray Fujitani. Despite his promise, he then married actress Adrienne LaRussa in 1984, while still married to Fujitani. Already embroiled in bigamy, he went on to cheat on both of his wives with actress Kelly LeBrock. Seagal allegedly saw LeBrock in 1984's Woman in Red and fell head over heels. However, some suggest that Seagal planned the relationship, as marrying a famous actor would increase his appeal and further his career. LeBrock and Seagal began a torrid affair that left LeBrock pregnant within the year.
He's fantastic. He's a perfectionist. He's crazy. He's wild. He's like a demon.
Reportedly, this led Fujitani to grant Seagal a divorce, and LaRussa to request an annulment. LaRussa later claimed that she didn't request money from the deal, but gave Seagal cash for months to get rid of him. Seagal and LeBrock were married in 1987, but she later filed for divorce in 1994. In 2009, he married his current wife, Erdana Tuya Seagal, after she worked as his assistant for a few years. Steven Seagal is one of Vladimir Putin's most vocal celebrity defenders, and the two seem to have years-long friendship. According to an interview with the state-run outlet Rossiyska Gazeta, Seagal had more than a few positive things to say about Putin. He described the Russian president as one of the great living world leaders and stated that he aspired to see Putin as a brother. Seagal is also extremely supportive of Putin's policies and vocally advocated for the Russian occupation of Crimea in 2012. In 2013, Putin pitched Seagal as a Russian consul and intermediary between the US and Moscow, which prompted an unnamed official in the Obama administration to tell BuzzFeed, "Our reaction was, you've got to be kidding." Seagal received Russian citizenship 3 years later. In 2018, Putin partially made good on his suggestion by naming Seagal a special envoy to improve relations with the United States.
I am trying very hard to work in such a way where we can have more meaningful discussions.
In 2023, Putin gave Seagal the Order of Friendship Medal to commemorate his support of Russia's activity in Ukraine. Putin isn't even the only controversial world leader he appears alongside. In 2017, Seagal got a photo op with Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, complete with vocal support of Duterte's leadership. Hosting Saturday Night Live is a rite of passage for movie stars, but Seagal's attempt at the gig did not go over well. Seagal hosted Season 16, Episode 18 of SNL, and according to several writers and stars, he was the worst host to ever step foot into 30 Rockefeller Plaza. One of those critics was longtime SNL writer and former U.S. Senator Al Franken. While speaking on the Your Mom's House podcast, he recounted a sketch Seagal pitched, which revolved entirely around a psychologist hypnotizing and sexually assaulting a woman. SNL creator Lorne Michaels played the critique of Seagal's performance for laughs in a later episode. Nicolas Cage hosted the premiere of Season 18, which aired just under 18 months after Seagal's episode. Cage's opening monologue saw him offer several tasteless comments about the bodies of his female co-stars, prompting Michaels to pull him aside and carefully explain the error of his ways. When Cage expressed remorse and shared his concern about what the audience thinks of him, Michaels made a crack at Seagal's expense to set him at ease.
They probably think I'm the biggest jerk who's ever been on the show.
No, that would be Steven Seagal.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, Seagal did not take kindly to this joke. Seagal's catalog of violent action films required the use of a lot of professional stunt performers. And while most professional action performers take care not to injure the stunt team by realistically faking attacks, several internal sources claim Seagal was not so careful. In an interview with Unrated magazine, stuntman Kane Hodder implied that Seagal intentionally hits stuntmen, although he was unwilling to say so outright. However, others have suggested that Seagal is known in the industry for routinely doing just that. Fellow action star and martial artist Michael Jai White spoke to DJ Vlad about Seagal's habits. White has starred alongside Seagal in several projects and claimed that he does strike his stunt performers.
Steven Seagal hits the out of people. That's a unique situation.
This situation got particularly tricky while filming Seagal's directorial debut on Deadly Ground. As Seagal was at the helm, White explained that the stuntmen he hurt had no place to complain about his behavior. Seagal is best known as a movie star, but he also brought his unique set of skills to the world of music as a singer and guitarist. His first album, Songs from the Crystal Cave, hit shelves in 2004. While it didn't crack Billboard's top 200 for the year, it did reach number 42 in France. Critics were generally less than impressed, and those familiar with the album probably heard a joke about it before they heard any of the songs. Seagal's second album, Mojo Priest, came out 2 years later and was a more focused effort. While his first album featured a bizarre mix of styles and genres, its follow-up favored a more singular vision. Still, critics were even less kind to Mojo Priest, offering generally awful reviews. Despite the questionable reception, Seagal managed to arrange several notable collaborators on both albums. Songs from the Crystal Cave featured songs with Lady Saw, General Stitchie, and Stevie Wonder, while Mojo Priest included a duet with the legendary Bo Diddley. Seagal even took Mojo Priest on the road with a concert tour, at one point opening for Sammy Hagar. The A&E reality TV series Steven Seagal Lawman followed the action star's exploits as a reserve deputy sheriff in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. Curiously, Seagal has never been a certified law enforcement officer there. Seagal's start in law enforcement began when he impressed some officers with his martial arts skills sometime in the 1980s. apparently his demonstration was so moving that Louisiana Sheriff Harry Lee gave him a position on the force. While Seagal's time in Jefferson Parish ended when Wynn filed sexual assault charges against him, A&E picked up the show for a third season in Maricopa County, Arizona. The third season of Steven Seagal Lawman later aired on Reels instead of A&E, and the series never got a fourth. Despite leaving the cop show game, Seagal wasn't done holding questionable law enforcement offices. In 2011, he became a deputy in the Hudspeth County Sheriff's Department of Southern Texas, reportedly after he personally reached out to the department to request a position. Unlike his ceremonial position in Louisiana, not much word has come out of his work in Texas, potentially because no one appears to be filming it. Steven Seagal was a major action star in the 90s, but he was far from the only one. In 1991, Seagal began feuding with fellow movie martial artist Jean-Claude Van Damme. Their well-publicized feud allegedly started when Seagal spoke about Van Damme on the Arsenio Hall show. He carefully questioned Van Damme's record as a martial artist, leading to a rumored altercation at Sylvester Stallone's house party. While Seagal hasn't spoken about the subject since, in an interview with The Telegraph, Van Damme stated that former Sony Pictures head Peter Guber offered both action stars $20 million to duke it out. For better or worse, Seagal didn't agree to the match. In 2023, Van Damme appeared to have buried the hatchet, telling the Daily Mail, "I have no problem with Steven. When you're young, you want to be the macho man. If I saw him today, I'd have no problem." While we may never know Seagal's stance on the conflict now, his approach to past public feuds suggests he might not offer Van Damme the same grace. Seagal has a long history of sexual abuse allegations. In 2010, Caden Wynn worked as Seagal's assistant before alleging that he kept her against her will for 6 days and regularly sexually attacked her. Wynn later dropped her suit against Seagal, possibly with a settlement, but multiple other assistants have also accused Seagal of sexually abusive behavior. In 2018, Fabiola Davis and Regina Simons came forward to accuse Seagal of sexual assaults that occurred years earlier. Simons, an extra and on deadly ground, alleged that Seagal raped her when she was 18, while Davis claimed that Seagal used an audition as a false pretense to sexually assault her. Simons' case was closed without charges due to California's statute of limitations, despite the fact that these allegations are only part of a long list of similar ones dating back more than 3 decades. Seagal has never been convicted of sexual misconduct. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE-4673.